Peppa Pig, best friends. Once upon a time, Peppa's best friend, Susie Sheep, came to play. "I have something to show you," said Susie. Susie held up a photograph of a baby sheep. "Look, it's me," said Susie. "You're not a baby, Susie," said Peppa, shaking her head. "This is an old photo," Susie explained. "It was taken when I was a baby." Peppa snorted. She didn't remember Susie being a baby. That was just silly. Susie pointed at Peppa. "In the olden days, you were a baby too," she said. "I don't remember being a baby," says Peppa. "But you were," insisted Susie. "Ask your mummy." Peppa and Susie raced inside. Mummy Pig was working on the computer. "Mummy," cried Peppa, "Susie is making up stories." "No, I'm not," Susie said. Peppa told Mummy Pig about Susie's silly idea. "I don't remember being a baby," Peppa insisted. "But you were a baby, Peppa," said Mummy Pig. Mummy Pig pulled up a picture of a baby pig on the computer. "Who do you think this is, Peppa?" she asked. Peppa thought that the baby looked like her cousin, Baby Alexander. "Is it Baby Alexander?" she asked. "No," replied Mummy Pig. "That's you as a baby, Peppa."
Wow.
Peppa was surprised. She had been a baby. Peppa and Susie giggled. Baby Peppa looked very cute. George and Daddy Pig came in to see what all the fuss was about. "Look, Daddy," said Peppa, "that's me as a baby." "I remember it," said Daddy Pig. "That photo was taken on our first day in this house." "What do you mean?" asked Peppa. Daddy Pig told Peppa, Susie and George that they had moved into their house when Peppa was very little. "We brought all our things on top of our car," he said. "Mummy Pig put up some pictures," said Daddy Pig. "Daddy Pig put up a shelf," said Mummy Pig. "And Grandpa made us a lovely flower garden." Peppa and Susie went outside. There was no flower garden at this house. "Why don't we have a flower garden now?" Peppa asked. "We used to, but Daddy Pig looked after it," Mummy Pig sighed. Said Daddy Pig, embarrassed. "We had the wrong kind of soil for flowers." "Was Susie my friend in the olden days?" asked Peppa. Daddy Pig nodded. "Of course," he said. "You and Susie have always been best friends." Peppa wondered what game she played with Susie when they were little. "Did we jump up and down in muddy puddles?" she asked. "No," Mummy Pig laughed. "You were babies. You couldn't even walk yet." "What did we do when we were babies?" asked Susie. "You cried. You burped. And you laughed," said Mummy Pig. Susie and Peppa giggled. It must have been so silly being babies. "Baby Peppa! Baby Susie!" "And then you grew into toddlers," continued Mummy Pig. "And you played together all the time." "But where was George?" Peppa asked. "He was a baby in my tummy," said Mummy Pig. Peppa thought for a moment. Daddy Pig's tummy was even bigger than Mummy's. "Is there a baby in there?" she asked. "No, Peppa," chuckled Daddy Pig. "This tummy is pure muscle." Soon George was born, Mummy Pig said, And Granny and Grandpa Pig bought him a very special present. Can you guess what it was, Peppa? Peppa knew just what present it had been. "Mr. Dinosaur!" she cried. "Grr, grr, grr." Daddy Pig said that little Peppa and Susie liked to do everything together. They liked to jump, dance, and run around all over the place. Then one day, said Mummy Pig, you saw something amazing. A muddy puddle. You love jumping up and down in muddy puddles together, said Mummy Pig. I still love muddy puddles, cried Peppa. Me too, cried Susie. Peppa, George and Susie looked for the biggest muddy puddle they could find and jumped right in. Daddy Pig brought his camera. Let's take a photo of you, Susie and George now, Peppa, he said. Yes, exclaimed Peppa, because Susie and I were best friends in the olden days and we're still best friends now. Little or big, Peppa and Susie will always be best friends, and they will always love jumping up and down in muddy puddles. The end. Peppa Pig Bicycle Race. It is a lovely sunny day. Peppa and George are going out for a ride. Peppa rings her bell. Ding ding. Come on, George, she says. Follow me. Peppa is riding her bicycle. George is riding his tricycle. Hurry up, George, calls Peppa. You're going so slowly, says George. Peppa sees her friends, Danny Dog, Susie Sheep and Rebecca Rabbit. They are riding their bicycles too. Danny points down the hill. Let's have a race to the bottom, he says. Danny, Susie and Rebecca ride very fast. Peppa rides quite fast. George does not ride very fast at all. George is riding a baby bike, snorts Peppa. So are you, says Danny. You've still got stabilisers. Peppa looks down at her bike. It is the only one with stabilisers on it. Let's ride up the hill again, says Danny. No, says Peppa. I think I'll stay here. Peppa asked Daddy Pig to take her stabilisers off. Do you think you can ride without them? He says. I can do it, Peppa nods. I can. She gets on her bicycle and starts pedalling. Uh-oh, Peppa falls onto the grass. Riding without stabilisers is hard. George giggles. It is not funny. Peppa frowns. Daddy Pig helps Peppa to get back on her bicycle. Let's try again, he says. Ready, steady, go. Don't let go of me, Daddy, says Peppa. Don't worry, says Daddy Pig. I've got you. Peppa pedals faster and faster. You're doing really well, shouts Daddy Pig. Peppa looks round. Daddy Pig has let go. Ho ho, he cries. You're cycling on your own. Peppa can ride on her own without stabilisers. Wow. She goes to find her friends. Look at me, shouts Peppa. I can ride my bike properly. Danny, Susie and Rebecca all cheer. Hooray! Come on, says Peppa. Let's race down the hill again. Danny, Susie and Rebecca ring their bells. Peppa loves riding her bicycle. Everyone loves riding bicycles. The end. Peppa Pig gardening. Peppa and George went to visit Grandpa Pig.
Hooray!
It was a warm day. Grandpa Pig was in his garden. Grandpa Pig liked to grow plants in his garden. What did you bring to show me today? Said Grandpa Pig. I've got a small bag and George has got his dinosaur, said Peppa. Those are good things to bring, but wait until I show you these, said Grandpa Pig. Grandpa Pig had some seeds to show George and Peppa.
Wow!
They will grow from small seeds into big plants, he said. Can we try to plant a seed today? Asked Peppa. Yes, let me show you how, said Grandpa Pig. First, you put a seed in the soil. Much later, the seed will grow into a plant. Then you can cut off the fruit and eat it, said Grandpa Pig. The seeds are very small, said Peppa. Yes, said Grandpa Pig. But the warm sun will help these small seeds grow. Then we can pick the fruit. I want to try, said Peppa. Grandpa Pig gave Peppa a small seed. Bring it here, Peppa. Now try to plant it, said Grandpa Pig. Peppa made a small hole in the soil. She put the seed into the hole. The warm sun will help the seed to grow, George, she said. Peppa got a watering can and put some water on the soil. Will the seed grow into a strawberry plant, Grandpa? Asked Peppa. Yes, but it will not grow today. It needs the warm sun and lots of water to grow, said Grandpa Pig. Peppa and George have come back to visit Grandpa Pig.
Hooray!
What did you bring to show me today? Asked Grandpa Pig. We want to see what you have to show us, said Peppa. The seed has grown into a strawberry plant. You can cut off a strawberry and eat it, said Grandpa Pig. Pick one and try it, said Grandpa Pig. Peppa cut off a strawberry. George picked one too. Yum. Can you grow other fruits from seeds? Asked Peppa. You can try to grow any sort of fruit plant. Then you can pick the fruit, cut it and eat it, said Grandpa Pig. George had a plan. He wanted to try and grow a dinosaur plant today. No, George, you cannot grow a dinosaur plant, said Peppa. He can try, laughed Grandpa Pig. But I do not like to eat dinosaurs. I like fruit much better. Dinosaur, said George. The end. Peppa Pig, George and the Dinosaur.
Dinosaur! Roar!
shouted George. George and his friends, Richard Rabbit and Edmund Elephant, loved dinosaurs. Wherever they went, they were always searching for fossils, stones and bones. In the sandpit, at the playground, and even in Grandpa Pig's garden. One day, when Richard and Edmund came to play, Mammy Pig had a special surprise. "We're going on a fossil hunting adventure at the beach," she said, "with Miss Rabbit the fossil hunter." "Are fossils always dinosaurs, Mammy?" asked Peppa. "They can also be the remains of plants or animals from a long, long time ago," explained Mammy Pig. The children put on their fossil hunting clothes and packed their bags with special tools and fact books. "Ready to go exploring?" Mammy Pig asked. "Yes!" cheered Peppa, George and George's friends, jumping up and down.
Hooray!
The brave explorers set off to meet Miss Rabbit at the beach. "The tide was high last night," said Miss Rabbit when they arrived. "Hopefully there'll be lots of wonderful things whipped up by the waves for us to discover." "Yippee!" cheered the children. "But if not, you can always buy fossils from my shop at the end," Miss Rabbit continued. "There's an offer on today, 2 for the price of 1. Miss Rabbit took out her fossil collection to show the children. "This swirly rock is an ammonite," she said, "and these shiny rocks are called fool's gold." Miss Rabbit held up some little rocks with gold bits in them. "Ooh, gold!" gasped Peppa. "I love hunting for treasure." "Unfortunately, it's not real gold, Peppa," explained Miss Rabbit, "but it's lovely and shiny." "This one's a belemnite," said Edmund, looking at Miss Rabbit's fossils. "It's an extinct mollusk, and I believe that one is a fossilized poo." "Poo!" snorted the other children. "Don't worry," said Edmund. "The poo is millions of years old." Edmund Elephant was very clever. "Wow," said Miss Rabbit. "You really know your stuff, Edmund." George pulled out a dinosaur book from his bag. "Dinosaur! Wow!" he asked, showing Miss Rabbit a picture of a dinosaur. "No one has ever found a complete dinosaur skeleton on this beach, I'm afraid, George," said Miss Rabbit. "But you might find some little fossils like the ones in my collection." Then Miss Rabbit turned to them all and said, "Now, shall we get started?" Peppa walked along the beach, looking at the ground, but she soon gave up. "I can't see anything, Mammy," she said. "Just lots and lots of sand and stones. I'm going to build a sandcastle instead." Meanwhile, George, Edmund and Richard explored the beach together. They took their fossil hunting mission very seriously. After Peppa had finished her sandcastle, she peered over at George. "Look, Mummy," she called. "George has found something." Mammy Pig and Miss Rabbit looked over at George. Their mouths dropped open. The explorers pointed to a huge rock further down the beach.
"Oh dear, Mummy Pig," sighed Miss Rabbit. "It looks like you're bringing the whole beach home with you." "Hello, George," said Mummy Pig. "What do we have here then?"
Dinosaur!
said George, holding his arms out on as wide as he could go.
Big dinosaur! We believe this rock contains a complete skeleton of a dinosaur,
explained Edmund.
George found footprints in the rocks near it, which are a clear sign. Can you help us crack it open, please?
"Are you sure it's not just a big rock?" Mummy Pig asked. But then Miss Rabbit took a closer look at it and pulled out her phone. "Yes, that's right. Very big," she said into her phone. "Please come immediately." Soon after, Mr. Rabbit arrived in a big truck with a team of helpers. Very carefully, they lifted the rock onto the truck. "We'll meet you at the museum," Mr. Rabbit called out as they drove off. At the museum, everyone watched excitedly as Mr. Rabbit and his team cracked open the rock. Everyone gasped. Mr. Rabbit was the first to speak. "What we have here is a complete skeleton of a—"
Dinosaur!
interrupted George. "That is correct. It is a dinosaur. In fact, it is a triceratops," confirmed Mr. Rabbit. "George, you are an expert fossil hunter, aren't you? This is an amazing dinosaur discovery." "Wow!" everyone cried, looking at the skeleton. Even Peppa was impressed. "Now," said Mr. Rabbit, "what shall we call this incredible dinosaur?"
George saw us the first,
cried Peppa.
because George saw the dinosaur first.
"Roar!" cheered George. Everyone laughed. "In this case, I officially name this dinosaur the George-osaurceratops Roar," announced Mr. Rabbit. "A big dinosaur like this needs a big name like that." Everyone loves fossil hunting and dinosaurs, especially George, the dinosaur expert. The end.
Peppa gives thanks. It is a lovely sunny morning. Peppa and Susie are having a tea party in the garden. "I brought my teddy to join us," says Peppa. "Did you bring your owl, Susie?" "No," says Susie. "I brought my new Mr. Super Snuggles. He's the best bear in the world." "What does he do?" Peppa asks. "He can sing," says Susie, "and say I love you, and his eyes light up." "Wow," says Peppa. "My teddy can't do any of those things." When Peppa gets home, she finds Mummy and Daddy Pig. "I would like a Mr. Super Snuggles, please," she says. "But you have a teddy bear, Peppa," says Mummy Pig. "My teddy is boring," Peppa snorts. "He can't sing or talk, and his eyes don't light up." "Ho, ho, ho," Daddy Pig laughs. "Come, Peppa, let me show you something." Daddy Pig shows Peppa a photo album. There are lots of pictures inside. "This is when we went camping, Peppa, and to the beach, and on a hot air balloon ride. And who is in all the pictures with you?" asked Daddy Pig. "My teddy," cries Peppa. "Right," says Daddy Pig. "You've had Teddy ever since you were a little piggy. That makes him very special. We have to be thankful for the things that we have," says Mummy Pig. "What's thankful?" asked Peppa. "It means we're happy for the wonderful things in our lives," said Mummy Pig. "What are you thankful for, Peppa?" Peppa thinks. "My toys." She runs upstairs. Her room is filled with lots of lovely toys. "What else?" asks Mummy Pig. "Our house," cries Peppa. "I love our house and our car and our garden." "Ho, ho," laughs Daddy Pig. "Anything else?" Peppa thinks. "I know something I'm thankful for," says Mummy Pig. "What?" asks Peppa. You and George and Daddy Pig, of course, says Mummy Pig. Peppa giggles. I'm thankful for that too. And I'm thankful for Susie Sheep and all my friends, says Peppa. And Granny and Grandpa Pig. Let's call Granny and Grandpa Pig right now, says Mummy Pig. We can invite them to a special dinner. Later that day, Granny and Grandpa Pig arrive. Mummy and Daddy Pig make a delicious dinner for everyone. Peppa and George help set the table. This looks wonderful, says Granny Pig. Thank you for inviting us over. Peppa, would you like to tell Granny and Grandpa what you learned today? Asked Daddy Pig. Yes, says Peppa. I learned that I'm thankful. I'm thankful for my toys and our house and my friends. How lovely, says Granny Pig. But most of all, I'm thankful for my family, says Peppa. And my teddy. Peppa loves being thankful. Everyone loves being thankful. Especially when there's so much to be thankful for. The end. Peppa goes to hospital. Today we are going to visit Pedro Pony in hospital, Madame Gazelle tells the class. Pedro's leg is broken and the doctors are mending it. Peppa has never been to the hospital before. Except when I was born, of course, Peppa says. I'm wearing my nurse's outfit, Susie Sheep says, because hospitals are very serious. But when the class arrives on the children's ward, the walls are full of colour. Ooh, they all say as they set off to find Pedro. Pedro is in bed with his leg in a plaster cast. Does it hurt? Zoe Zebra asks. It did at first, Pedro says, but not anymore. Do you want to draw on it? What's it like being in hospital? Asks Peppa. It's great, replies Pedro. Nurse gives me stickers and comes whenever I press this button. Another nurse comes over with a trolley. Lunchtime, she says. Spaghetti and sponge pudding, please, says Pedro. Wow, you get to eat in bed, gasps Peppa. Dr. Brown Bear visits Pedro. You're nearly better and ready to go home. The bell rings. Visiting time has ended. Get well soon, wave the children. A few days later, Pedro is back. Where is your plaster cast? Ask his friends. My leg is all better. It's a super leg now, Pedro says. Thank you for visiting me in hospital. The end. Peppa's Australian Underwater Adventure. Peppa was very excited. She had just won a Great Barrier Reef art competition at the aquarium. Congrats, Peppa, said Miss Rabbit. "Your prize is to join me on a marine biology trip to Australia."
Wow.
"Hooray!" cheered Peppa. "What's marine biology?" "It's learning about the plants and animals that live in the sea," explained Miss Rabbit. "Ooh," said Peppa. "We're going to stay with Mrs. Kangaroo," continued Miss Rabbit. "She will teach us how to scuba dive in the Great Barrier Reef." "What an amazing prize for a competition," said Mummy Pig, a bit surprised. "Well, Peppa's drawing was very imaginative," said Miss Rabbit. "Her picture wasn't exactly like any fish I have ever seen, but it was a prize-winning picture." "I see," said Mummy Pig. "There's nothing wrong with a bit of imagination, is there?" "Of course, you, Daddy Pig and George will be coming to Australia too," Miss Rabbit told Mummy Pig. "How lovely," replied Mummy Pig. "Thank you, Mrs. Rabbit." Peppa and her family are very excited to be seeing their friends in Australia again.
Hooray!
"We'll be leaving first thing tomorrow," said Miss Rabbit. "Right then," said Mummy Pig. "We'd better head to the shops and get everything we need for the trip." Peppa, George, Mummy and Daddy Pig headed to Mr. Fox's shop and told him what they needed. Mr. Fox got everything out. "Now," he said, "I think you'll also need some paper and colouring pens. You never know when they might come in handy." "I'm not sure we do," began Mummy Pig. "Trust me, Mummy Pig," Mr. Fox interrupted. "You'll definitely need these." "Oh, okay then," said Mummy Pig. "Thank you for your help, Mr. Fox. We must get going now so we can pack all of this." The next morning, Peppa and her family woke up very early and hopped on the aeroplane to Australia. "Where's Miss Rabbit?" asked Daddy Pig. "I think she's finding her own way there," replied Mummy Pig. While Peppa, George, Mummy and Daddy Pig flew on an aeroplane, Miss Rabbit travelled to Australia by hot air balloon, helicopter and boat. Ahoy there! Amazingly, Miss Rabbit arrived in Australia at the exact same time as Peppa and her family. "Welcome to Australia, everyone," said Miss Kangaroo. "It's so good to see you," said Kylie Kangaroo, giving Peppa a big hug. After they were settled in, Mrs. Kangaroo went through the diving plan with Kylie, Peppa and Miss Rabbit. "There are so many amazing creatures to discover in the Great Barrier Reef," she explained. "It's an incredible place." Mrs. Kangaroo taught Peppa about diving and marine biology.
Wow.
"What does buddy up mean?" asked Peppa. "It means we are going to dive in a group," explained Miss Kangaroo. She held up a list of creatures they were going to see and count on their underwater adventure. Green sea turtles, orange clownfish, blue starfish, pink sea anemones, and even whales. "Wow!" gasped Peppa. She was so excited. Mrs. Kangaroo drove everyone to the boat. Then they hopped on board with their diving gear and headed out to the diving site. When the boat stopped, Mrs. Kangaroo gave Peppa and Kylie a special underwater list each. It's important that we count the marine life carefully, she said. If you spot anything unusual, let me know. Then Peppa, Miss Rabbit, Kylie and Mrs. Kangaroo jumped backwards off the boat. They dived deep down under the water to the reef. The divers saw lots of amazing plants and animals on the reef. They spotted 5 orange clownfish, 4 pink sea anemones, 3 brilliant blue starfish, 2 big green turtles, and 1 enormous whale.
Wow,
said Peppa.
it's so colourful down here.
Peppa and Miss Rabbit followed the whale further into the reef. Peppa used her diving fins to swim as fast as she could to keep up, and Miss Rabbit paddled along behind her. The whale pointed its fin at a big rock. Peppa peered behind the rock and saw a fish that wasn't on Mrs. Kangaroo's list, poking its head out.
That looks just like the fish I coloured in,
said Peppa. At the end of the dive, everyone climbed back on board the boat.
We counted so many creatures,
said Peppa excitedly.
It was amazing. I also spotted a beautiful fish that wasn't on your list, Miss Kangaroo. What did it look like, Peppa?
asked Kylie.
It looked a bit like a clownfish, said Peppa, but not exactly.
Said Mrs. Kangaroo. Can you describe it a bit more, Peppa? Peppa used the colouring pens from Mr. Fox's shop to draw the fish she had seen. It looked just like her picture from the aquarium.
Wow, that's a lovely fish, Peppa,
said Kylie. Peppa is very good at drawing, said Miss Rabbit. I don't believe it, gasped Mrs. Kangaroo when she saw Peppa's drawing. It looks just like a rare blue clownfish.
Wow.
That hasn't been seen for a while now. Where did you spot it, Peppa? Peppa took everyone back to where she had seen the unusual fish. Mrs. Kangaroo had been searching for the blue clownfish for a long time. Peppa spotted the whale winking at her in the distance.
Thank you for showing us the fish, lovely whale,
Peppa said, winking back. After Mrs. Kangaroo had taken lots of photographs of the fish, she signalled for everyone to swim up to the boat and head back to the shore. That afternoon, Mrs. Kangaroo and her family cooked a big meal to celebrate Peppa's amazing discovery. What do you think of the Great Barrier Reef, Peppa? asked Daddy Pig.
It's the most brilliant place ever, replied Peppa. The fish are just like I imagined they would be.
She held up her picture from the art competition. It looked exactly like the fish she had seen on her dive. Everyone laughed. Peppa loves the beautiful Great Barrier Reef. Everyone loves the beautiful Great Barrier Reef. The end. Peppa's Australian Underwater Adventure. Peppa was very excited. She had just won a Great Barrier Reef art competition at the aquarium.
Congrats, Peppa,
said Miss Rabbit.
Your prize is to join me on a marine biology trip to Australia.
Wow.
Hooray!
Cheered Peppa.
What's marine biology? It's learning about the plants and animals that live in the sea,
explained Miss Rabbit. Ooh, said Peppa.
"We're going to stay with Mrs. Kangaroo," continued Miss Rabbit. "She will teach us how to scuba dive in the Great Barrier Reef."
"What an amazing prize for a competition," said Mummy Pig, a bit surprised.
"Well, Peppa's drawing was very imaginative," said Miss Rabbit. "Her picture wasn't exactly like any fish I have ever seen, but it was a prize-winning picture."
"I see," said Mummy Pig. "There's nothing wrong with a bit of imagination, is there?"
"Of course, you, Daddy Pig and George will be coming to Australia too," Miss Rabbit told Mummy Pig.
"How lovely," replied Mummy Pig.
"Thank you, Mrs. Rabbit."
Peppa and her family are very excited to be seeing their friends in Australia again.
Hooray!
"We'll be leaving first thing tomorrow," said Miss Rabbit.
"Right then," said Mummy Pig. "We'd better head to the shops and get everything we need for the trip." Peppa, George, Mummy and Daddy Pig headed to Mr. Fox's shop and told him what they needed. Mr. Fox got everything out. "Now," he said, "I think you'll also need some paper and colouring pens. You never know when they might come in handy."
"I'm not sure we do," began Mummy Pig.
"Trust me, Mummy Pig," Mr. Fox interrupted. "You'll definitely need these."
"Oh, okay then," said Mummy Pig. "Thank you for your help, Mr. Fox. We must get going now so we can pack all of this."
The next morning, Peppa and her family woke up very early and hopped on the aeroplane to Australia. "Where's Miss Rabbit?" asked Daddy Pig.
"I think she's finding her own way there," replied Mummy Pig.
While Peppa, George, Mummy and Daddy Pig flew on an aeroplane, Miss Rabbit travelled to Australia by hot air balloon, helicopter and boat.
"Ahoy there!"
Amazingly, Miss Rabbit arrived in Australia at the exact same time as Peppa and her family.
"Welcome to Australia, everyone," said Miss Kangaroo. "It's so good to see you," said Kylie Kangaroo, giving Peppa a big hug.
After they were settled in, Mrs. Kangaroo went through the diving plan with Kylie, Peppa and Miss Rabbit.
"There are so many amazing creatures to discover in the Great Barrier Reef," she explained. "It's an incredible place."
Mrs. Kangaroo taught Peppa about diving and marine biology.
Wow!
"What does buddy up mean?" asked Peppa.
"It means we are going to dive in a group," explained Miss Kangaroo. She held up a list of creatures they were going to see and count on their underwater adventure. Green sea turtles, orange clownfish, blue starfish, pink sea anemones, and even whales.
"Wow!"
gasped Peppa. She was so excited. Mrs. Kangaroo drove everyone to the boat. Then they hopped on board with their diving gear and headed out to the diving site. When the boat stopped, Mrs. Kangaroo gave Peppa and Kylie a special underwater list each.
"It's important that we count the marine life carefully," she said. "If you spot anything unusual, let me know."
Then Peppa, Miss Rabbit, Kylie and Mrs. Kangaroo jumped backwards off the boat. They dived deep down under the water to the reef.
The divers saw lots of amazing plants and animals on the reef. They spotted 5 orange clownfish, 4 pink sea anemones, 3 brilliant blue starfish, 2 big green turtles, and 1 enormous whale.
Wow,
said Peppa.
it's so colourful down here.
Peppa and Miss Rabbit followed the whale further into the reef. Peppa used her diving fins to swim as fast as she could to keep up, and Miss Rabbit paddled along behind her. The whale pointed its fin at a big rock. Peppa peered behind the rock and saw a fish that wasn't on Mrs. Kangaroo's list, poking its head out.
That looks just like the fish I coloured in,
said Peppa. At the end of the dive, everyone climbed back on board the boat.
We counted so many creatures,
said Peppa excitedly.
It was amazing. I also spotted a beautiful fish that wasn't on your list, Miss Kangaroo. What did it look like, Peppa?
asked Kylie.
It looked a bit like a clownfish, said Peppa, but not exactly.
Said Mrs. Kangaroo. Can you describe it a bit more, Peppa? Peppa used the colouring pens from Mr. Fox's shop to draw the fish she had seen. It looked just like her picture from the aquarium.
Wow, that's a lovely fish, Peppa,
said Kylie. Peppa is very good at drawing, said Miss Rabbit. I don't believe it, gasped Mrs. Kangaroo when she saw Peppa's drawing. It looks just like a rare blue clownfish.
Wow.
That hasn't been seen for a while now. Where did you spot it, Peppa? Peppa took everyone back to where she had seen the unusual fish. Mrs. Kangaroo had been searching for the blue clownfish for a long time. Peppa spotted the whale winking at her in the distance.
Thank you for showing us the fish, lovely whale,
Peppa said, winking back. After Mrs. Kangaroo had taken lots of photographs of the fish, she signalled for everyone to swim up to the boat and head back to the shore. That afternoon, Mrs. Kangaroo and her family cooked a big meal to celebrate Peppa's amazing discovery. What do you think of the Great Barrier Reef, Peppa? asked Daddy Pig.
It's the most brilliant place ever, replied Peppa. The fish are just like I imagined they would be.
She held up her picture from the art competition. It looked exactly like the fish she had seen on her dive. Everyone laughed. Peppa loves the beautiful Great Barrier Reef. Everyone loves the beautiful Great Barrier Reef. The end. Peppa's Playdate. Today, Peppa is having a playdate at her house. Peppa has invited Mandy Mouse and Pandora and Peggy, the panda twins. Why don't you get some toys out, Peppa? Says Mummy Pig. Think about what your friends might like to play with.
But I don't know what my friends will want to do,
sighs Peppa, getting lots of toys out of the cupboard to take downstairs. Don't worry, Peppa, says Daddy Pig. I'll set up some crafts for you to do. And I'll set up some games for you to play, says Mummy Pig. Daddy Pig lays out all the craft things on the table. Perfect, he says. They'll love these, says Mummy Pig, setting up all the games in the living room. Ding dong! Just then, the doorbell rings.
They're here, shouts Peppa, running to the door. Peggy, Pandora and Mandy all go into Peppa's house.
Do you have a garden, Peppa?
asks Mandy.
Yes.
Great, says Mandy.
Come on, everyone, let's go outside.
The friends go to the garden and play lots of games. They play a game of princesses, pirates and giants.
Uh-oh,
gasped Peggy.
I see a shadow of a big bad giant.
Oh no!
Ah!
Everyone shouts. Snacks, anyone? says Daddy Pig.
Oh, it's you, Daddy,
says Peppa.
We thought you were a giant. Each play date is the best and we want to stay here all day,
says Pandora.
Yes, we want to stay here all day,
repeats Peggy. It's time for Mandy, Pandora and Peggy to go home, calls Mummy Pig.
Aww.
Everyone sighs.
But we didn't do your craft, Daddy,
says Peppa.
or play Mammy's games.
That's okay. You made your own fun, didn't you? says Daddy Pig.
Yes!
Everyone cheers. When Mandy, Peggy and Pandora all go home, Peppa asks,
Can I have my friends over for a play date tomorrow, Mummy?
Says Mummy Pig, looking at the mess.
How about next week?
Or you could go to Mandy's house for a play date, suggests Daddy Pig. Great idea, says Mummy Pig. Peppa loves play dates. Everyone loves play dates. The end. Peppa Pig, Daddy Pig gets fit. Daddy Pig was sitting in his chair.
You've had too much to eat and drink, Daddy. You need to start to get fit,
said Peppa. I am very fit, said Daddy Pig. I could do 7 or 8 press-ups if I wanted to right now.
Wow.
But when Daddy Pig got up, he hurt his back.
Ouch. Ouch.
Well, perhaps I could do 6 press-ups, he said.
You could go and ride a bike, then you would start to get fit,
said Peppa. No, it's too hot out there. I can get myself fit right here, said Daddy Pig. I will do 7 or 8 press-ups. If I am on my own, I can start, Peppa, said Daddy Pig.
Will you do lots of them if you are on your own?
asked Peppa. Yes. In fact, I will do 9 or 10 press-ups. I will count out loud so you can hear, said Daddy Pig. Peppa left Daddy Pig on his own, and he started to count. 6, 7, said Daddy Pig. 8, 9, 10. All done, said Daddy Pig.
Daddy,
said Peppa.
you were not counting press-ups. You were counting the cars on the television.
I was going to do 7 or 8 press-ups by myself, but then my arms hurt, said Daddy Pig.
If you will not get fit on your own, you must come and start getting fit with me,
said Peppa. Daddy Pig got on a bike. It was Peppa's bike.
If you want to get fit, you need to go for a long ride on your own,
said Peppa. It will not be fun by myself, said Daddy Pig.
Off you go on your own. I will count to 10. Do not come back until I count to 10,
said Peppa. Daddy Pig went up the hill. It was hard work. I am hot and I need a drink. My legs hurt. This is not fun on my own, said Daddy Pig. At home,
Peppa was counting.
7, 8.
Daddy Pig had got to the top of the hill. He went down again very fast. I hope I will not hurt myself if I crash, said Daddy Pig. Daddy Pig did crash. He crashed into a pond. This is not the drink I wanted, but at least I am not too hot, he said. And at least I am not on my own.
Bonk, bonk.
My legs hurt. I will start to push the bike back up the hill, said Daddy Pig. It was hard work. Daddy Pig was hot and he wanted a drink. Daddy Pig was not on his own. All of the ducks came with him.
Bonk.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10 ducks, said Daddy Pig.
9, 10,
said Peppa. I am back from my long ride, said Daddy Pig.
That was a good start, Daddy. Do you feel fitter now?
asked Peppa. No, said Daddy Pig. I am hot. I need a drink and my legs hurt. But I think I might have a better way to keep myself fit. This is better. It's not so hot, said Daddy Pig. I will keep myself fit if I do this 7 days a week. The end. Peppa Pig, the Boat Pond. Peppa and George have brought their toy boats to race on the pond.
Wow.
George's boat has to be wound up. The ducks come over to see Peppa and George.
Bonk, bonk.
Hello, ducks. May we use your pond to sail our boats?
asked Peppa.
My boat doesn't wind up,
says Peppa, looking for the winder on her boat. Your boat doesn't need winding up, Peppa, says Mummy Pig. It just needs a little help, says Daddy Pig, blowing Peppa's boat along. Here is Peppa's friend, Susie Sheep.
Hello, everyone,
she cries.
I've got my speedboat. It has batteries to make it go.
Woof! Here is Danny Dog with Grandad Dog.
My granddad made me this pedal boat. It's steam powered,
says Danny.
Wow.
Rebecca Rabbit arrives with her mummy.
I wish I had a boat,
she says. I've got an idea, says Daddy Pig, picking up his newspaper. When I was a little piggy, I used to fold newspaper to make paper boats, says Daddy Pig, handing a boat to Rebecca.
Thank you, Mr. Pig,
says Rebecca, placing her paper boat on the pond. Now George wants a paper boat too. Daddy Pig makes paper boats for everyone. Let's race, says Mummy Pig. Ready, steady, blow! The boats speed across the pond. We have a winner, says Daddy Pig.
That's George's boat,
says Peppa.
George is the winner.
Hooray! Everybody cheers.
I like paper boats the best,
cries Peppa.
Me too,
cry all the children. It's time to go home now. Everybody has had a great day.
Bye-bye, ducks,
says Peppa.
Bonk, bonk.
The ducks enjoyed the toy boats, but they like having their pond back too. The end. Peppa Pig, Sun, Sea and Snow. Peppa and George are going on a coach trip to the seaside with Mummy and Daddy Pig.
Hooray!
Yippee, says Peppa.
I'm going to build lots of sand castles.
Wow!
Then she looks out of the window. Oh no, a lot of snow has fallen overnight. Daddy Pig opens the door and goes out. A snowman comes back in. I'm cold, says the snowman.
It's a talking snowman,
Gasps Peppa. It's Daddy Pig, Peppa, says Mummy Pig. There is so much snow, it has covered him. Everyone warms up Daddy Pig by rubbing him with towels. That's better, says Daddy Pig.
Now we can go to the seaside.
Cheers, Peppa. I don't think the coach will be running today, Peppa, says Mummy Pig. Not with all this snow. Miss Rabbit's coach arrives at Peppa's house. How did you get through all that snow? Asked Mummy Pig.
My big snowplough pushes the snow out of the way,
says Miss Rabbit.
Next stop the seaside.
They set off for the seaside. On the way, they pass Mr. Bull and his team gritting the road. The grit melts the snow.
The road is clear all the way to the seaside,
says Mr. Bull.
Hooray!
Have a lovely day at the beach,
says Mr. Bull. Peppa and her friends are very excited. They sing a happy seaside song.
We're all going on a seaside holiday. Sandcastle swimming and sunny skies. We're all going on a seaside holiday. Sea and sand and ice cream too.
The coach arrives at the seaside.
The beach is covered in snow,
says Peppa. The sea looks cold, says Miss Rabbit. I was looking forward to having a swim, says Mummy Pig, disappointed. Mummy Pig decides to go swimming in the sea anyway.
Is it cold, Mummy?
asks Peppa. It is a little bit cold, calls Mummy Pig back.
If you keep moving, you'll warm up,
says Mummy Sheep. I'll keep moving then, says Mummy Pig. Mummy Pig runs out of the sea again. Now it is Mummy Pig's turn to be warmed up. Peppa, George and Daddy Pig rub her with towels. That's better, says Mummy Pig.
It is too cold to go swimming and there's no sand to play with. What can we do now?
asked Peppa. Daddy Pig has a good idea too. We can't make sand castles as the beach is covered in snow, but we can make snow castles, says Daddy Pig.
I love the seaside,
cries Susie Sheep.
And I love the snow,
adds Danny Dog.
I love the seaside and the snow, says Peppa.
Everyone loves the seaside and the snow. The end. Peppa Pig, the Castle. Peppa and George were once on their way to see an old castle. They were going to walk round the castle. Once we get there, we will walk right round the castle and see it all,
said Daddy Pig. Daddy Pig had a map to find the old castle.
Wow.
The old castle is after this big round hill, he said. The old castle was not after the big round hill. Can you see an old castle? Asked Mummy Pig. Not yet, said Daddy Pig. We need to turn left after this tree. We will see it once we go past the tree. The old castle was not past the tree. How far is the castle from here, Mummy? Asked Peppa. Do not ask me, ask Daddy. He has got the map, said Mummy Pig. Not far, said Daddy Pig. We need to turn right after this round pond. The old castle was not after the round pond. How far is it from here, Daddy? Asked Mummy Pig. I think this is an old map, said Daddy Pig. I will stop the car and ask Grandpa Pig, said Mummy Pig. The old castle is just round the corner from you, said Grandpa Pig. Just round the corner, said Mummy Pig. Turn right just after the tree and then left after the pond. You can walk there if you like, said Grandpa Pig.
Wow.
Once Peppa and George had got to the castle, they went for a walk round it. How old is the castle? Asked Peppa. It is an old castle, Peppa, said Daddy Pig. I will tell you as we walk round it. After a walk round the castle, Peppa and George were at the top. There was a telescope up there. I have 2 coins. Peppa can look in the telescope once, and George can look at once too, said Daddy Pig. George had a look. How far can you see? Asked Peppa. Far, said George. Peppa had a look. How far can you see, Peppa? Asked Daddy Pig. I can see as far as a car. And I can see Grandpa Pig from here, said Peppa.
Hooray!
Hello, Grandpa Pig. Peppa can see you in the telescope, said Mummy Pig. Hello. Once you have had a walk round, I will tell you how to get home, said Grandpa Pig. It will be easy to get back from the old castle. Daddy has got his map, said Mummy Pig. Good luck. Daddy Pig's map is as old as a castle, said Grandpa Pig. The end. Peppa Pig, the Museum. Peppa and her family are visiting the museum. Museums are full of interesting things that are very old, says Daddy Pig. Older than you? Asked Peppa. Daddy Pig chuckles. Yes, even older than me, he says. Peppa and George want to know what's inside. One room is full of things that belonged to kings and queens long ago, says Mummy Pig. And another room has a real dinosaur, says Daddy Pig.
Wow.
Now George is excited. Inside the museum, they meet Miss Rabbit at the ticket booth. Mummy Pig asks Miss Rabbit for 4 tickets.
George wiggles Mr. Dinosaur.
Dinosaur,
He cries.
and one dinosaur.
Says Miss Rabbit. Mummy Pig spots something very shiny. Look, Peppa, this is a queen's golden crown, says Mummy Pig.
Wow!
Says Peppa.
If I were a queen, I would eat as much cake as I wanted,
says Peppa. She would be Queen Peppa with a sparkly dress and a crown with jewels and a big slice of chocolate cake. Peppa pretends she's a queen sitting on a throne. Daddy Pig, Mummy Pig and George all bow to Queen Peppa. Is there anything else you would care for, Your Royal Highness? Asks Mummy Pig.
More cake, please,
replies Peppa. It's lots of fun pretending. Next, they all go to the dinosaur room.
Hooray!
I can't see a dinosaur,
says Peppa.
It must be very small.
Daddy Pig explains that the dinosaur is very big. Peppa and George look up to find a huge skeleton.
Wow!
These are the bones of a real dinosaur, says Daddy Pig. George shakes Mr. Dinosaur at the skeleton and growls as loud as he can.
Dinosaur,
Shouts George. George pretends to be a big dinosaur. He's a Georgosaurus.
roar!
Shouts George.
Help, it's a dinosaur!
Peppa laughs. It's fun to pretend. After looking around the museum, Mummy Pig, Daddy Pig, Peppa and George go to the cafe. The dinosaur room was George's favourite room. Peppa loved the King's and Queen's room. It looks like Daddy Pig is in his favourite room, says Mummy Pig. The room with the cakes in it. The end. Peppa Pig, the Naughty Tortoise. It is autumn and Tiddles the tortoise is going to sleep for the winter, but Tiddles isn't sleepy. So he has run away and climbed a tree.
How are we going to rescue him?
Asked Peppa.
I'll ring the fire brigade,
Replies Dr. Hamster.
Stand clear!
Shouts Mama Elephant when the fire engine arrives. She puts the ladder against the tree and Mummy Cow starts to climb up towards Tiddles.
Nina, Nina.
Mummy Cow reaches the top of the ladder, but Tiddles climbs higher.
Come here, you little pickle,
Calls Mummy Cow.
Be careful, Mummy Cow.
Shouts Mummy Elephant, but Mummy Cow climbs onto a branch and gets stuck. Cows are not very good at climbing trees.
Hang on,
Cries Mummy Elephant.
I'm coming up.
Mummy Elephant climbs onto a different branch and she gets stuck too. Elephants are not very good at climbing trees either.
What are we going to do now?
Asked Peppa.
I'll call another rescue service,
Says Dr. Hamster.
Grandad Dog's breakdown truck.
Says Grandad Dog when he arrives. How do you get tortoises out of trees? Shall I climb up?
Yes, please,
Replies Dr. Hamster. Grandad Dog climbs up to the first branch in the tree. Oh, says Grandad Dog, I seem to be stuck. Dogs are not very good at climbing trees either.
Now what are we going to do?
Asked Peppa.
We'll have to call the highest rescue service in the land, replies Dr. Hamster. Miss Rabbit arrives in her rescue helicopter. Hello everyone, she calls down. Now let's rescue this tortoise. Miss Rabbit puts her helicopter on autopilot and climbs down the ladder to the tree. Got you, you little rascal, says Miss Rabbit, reaching out and grabbing Tiddles from the top of the tree. Then she carries him safely down to the ground. Thank you for saving my Tiddles, Miss Rabbit, says Dr. Hamster. No problem, replies Miss Rabbit. Then she climbs back up the ladder to rescue Mammy Elephant, Mammy Cow and Grandad Dog. Thank you for saving us too, they cry. Just doing my job, replies Miss Rabbit. What a naughty tortoise you are, says Dr. Hamster. Tiddles yawns. Oh good, now you're sleepy, says Dr. Hamster. Back in your box you go. Sleep well, Tiddles, cries Peppa. Tiddles has gone to sleep for the winter and will wake again in the springtime. Shh, whispers Peppa. Everyone giggles very quietly. The end.
Hi kids, did you have fun watching this video? Then like and subscribe for
Peppa Pig, Doctors to the Rescue. It is a sunny day. Peppa and her friends are playing outside. Pedro Pony shouts. Tiddles the tortoise is stuck in a tree. I can get him down, says Pedro. I'll give the tree a little shake. Pedro shakes the tree. Tiddles falls down and lands on Pedro's nose. Ow, says Pedro. That hurt. Madam Gazelle, Pedro is hurt, says Peppa. Do not worry, says Madam Gazelle. I will call Dr. Brown Bear. Dr. Brown Bear is a doctor who helps children when they are sick or hurt. Dr. Brown Bear answers his phone. I am on my way, he says. Dr. Brown Bear looks at Pedro's nose. You need a bandage, he says. The bandage makes Pedro's nose feel better. Thank you, says Pedro. But now my glasses do not work. Can you fix them? No, says Dr. Brown Bear. You need an eye doctor for that. Madam Gazelle calls Dr. Pony. Dr. Pony is Pedro's dad. He is also an eye doctor. He gives Pedro an eye test. Your glasses are just muddy, says Dr. Pony. He cleans Pedro's glasses. Hooray! Pedro's glasses are fixed. Pedro is feeling better. His glasses work again too. But Tiddles is still not well. We will call the vet, says Madam Gazelle. A vet is a doctor who takes care of pets. Dr. Hamster the vet arrives. Tiddles, you little pickle, she says. What have I told you about climbing in trees? Dr. Hamster flips Tiddles back onto his feet. Now he feels better. Just then, Dr. Elephant arrives. He is a dentist. A dentist is a doctor who looks after teeth. Are everyone's teeth okay? He asks. Yes, say the children. Then I will be on my way, says Dr. Elephant. But Dr. Elephant cannot leave. His car will not start. Who do we call when your car is sick? Asks Peppa. I know who to call, says Madam Gazelle. Madam Gazelle calls Grandad Dog. He knows how to fix cars.
good as new,
he says.
Hooray!
Hooray! Cheer the children. Grandad Dog is a doctor for cars, said Peppa. Even cars need doctors. All the doctors save the day. The end.
Daddy Pig's Words of Wisdom.
being a dad is as easy as eating chocolate cake. I would know. I am a bit of an expert at it after all. Here are my top tips on being one of the world's greatest dads.
But Daddy, dinner's ready. Daddy, the sun is up.
Firstly, us dads always like to get up bright and early, ready for a fun-filled day with the little ones. It's best to leave breakfast to us. We'll show everyone how it's done and make them smile. Entertaining the children is a doddle. We can do it standing on one leg.
Wake up, Daddy!
Or even lying down. When it comes to DIY, everyone should stand back and watch us craftsmen at work.
I don't think that's quite right, Daddy.
And when it comes to going for a drive, there are 2 rules. Rule 1. A dad always looks like he knows what he's doing. Rule 2. A dad never admits he might be a bit lost. The great outdoors is the perfect place to display an expert dad's natural athletic ability. And his superb survival skills. I must say, sometimes even expert dads need to read the instructions.
I think they're upside down, Daddy.
But most things come naturally, like showing everyone how champions like to do things.
We're a bit muddy, Daddy.
Dads also do a great job of cleaning up. Finally, when it comes to bedtime, all dads have it all under control. Our expert story reading skills will send the little ones straight to sleep. Sometimes, even the greatest expert daddies need to take a little nap.
Night-night, Daddy.
The end. George's racing car. Peppa, George, Daddy Pig and Grandpa Pig are watching racing cars on television.
It's such a lovely day. You should go outside and play,
Granny Pig says. What shall we do? Asked Daddy Pig. Says George.
George wants to play racing cars,
Sighs Peppa.
Let's build him one,
Says Grandpa Pig. He finds an old pram in his shed. Clever Grandpa Pig turns the pram into a pedal car.
Wow!
What's your favourite number, George? Asked Daddy Pig. George replies. Daddy Pig paints a big 2 on the car's bonnet. Along come Danny Dog, Zoe Zebra, and Pedro Pony.
Look at George's racing car, says Peppa. We'll race you 3 times around the garden, George, they cry.
Go! Peppa shouts, waving a checkered flag. At the end of lap 2, George is in the lead until one of his wheels comes off.
I'm the chief mechanic,
cries Peppa.
I can fix it.
George gets back in the race, but now he's last. Oh no! Granny Pig comes outside to see what the noise is all about.
Come on, George,
she shouts. Meow, he says, pedaling as fast as he can. Go, George, go! Snort Peppa, Daddy Pig and Grandpa Pig. George finally takes the lead and zooms across the finishing line. George is the winner, declares Grandpa Pig.
Well done, George, says Peppa. You're the best racing driver in the whole world.
George agrees. And you've got the best chief mechanic in the whole world too, adds Daddy Pig.
Yes, that's me,
says Peppa, pointing to herself proudly. Everyone laughs. The end.
Hi kids, did you have fun watching this video? Then like and subscribe for more.